Hi class, welcome back. We are now going to start part 2 of the 4 Freedoms speech. We are on page 271 of our textbook and we are on paragraph 13. So let's just start reading and continue where we left off. During 16 long months, this assault has blotted out the whole pattern of democratic life in an appalling number of independent nations, great and small. The assailants are still on the march, threatening other nations, great and small. So he's talking, when he says this assault, he's talking again about Hitler and his forces, his Nazi forces. He's saying how it has taken the democratic way of life from many different independent nations, great and small. So remember, we learned at the beginning of the text that Nazi Germany had already invaded Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, and tried to basically take over Great Britain. So that's a lot of different free nations that are now under the control of Hitler and his tyrannical government. And so these nations, their democratic way of life was taken away. So President Roosevelt is saying, hey, if Hitler was able to take away the democratic way of life of all these different nations, what's going to stop him from coming to America and taking away our democracy? And we are the biggest, most powerful democracy in the world. So wouldn't he want to attack our democracy? And that's what he is going to be saying in this speech. Paragraph 14. Therefore, as your president, performing my constitutional duty to give the Congress information of the state of the Union, I find it unhappily necessary to report that the future and the safety of our country and of our democracy are overwhelmingly involved in the events beyond our borders. So he hates that he has to give this news, but he's saying the safety of our country, the future of our country, of our democracy is basically being dictated by what's happening in Europe. Paragraph 15. Armed defense of democratic existence is now being gallantly waged in 4 continents. If that defense fails, all the population, all the resources of Europe and Asia and Africa and Australia basically, but it's Asia, like the part of Australia part of Asia that's right next to Australia, that's what they're talking about, will be dominated by conquerors. Let us remember that the total of these populations and their resources in those 4 continents greatly exceeds the sum total of the population and the resources of the whole of the Western Hemisphere, many times over. In times like these, it is immature and incidentally untrue for anybody to brag that an unprepared America, single-handed and with one hand tied behind its back, can hold off the whole world. No realistic American can expect from a dictator's peace, international generosity, or return of true independence or world disarmament, or freedom of expression or freedom of religion, or even good business. So this is kind of a key paragraph he's saying here. He's saying basically totally different. Hitler in Nazi Germany is attacking these 4 different continents: Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australasia. Because remember, Japan is an ally of, is part of the Axis powers and is with Germany and Italy attacking all these areas. And if you see Italy on a map, it's very close to Africa. If you see Japan on a map, it's very close to Australia and that area. And Japan is also attacking Asia and China and Russia. And so all these 4 continents are being attacked. And so he's saying if these 4 continents get taken over by Hitler, are we going to expect to be just safe and democratic and we'll be just fine over here on the Western Hemisphere, over here in America? Yeah, we'll be fine because Hitler, he's going to allow us to have independence. He's going to take away his weapons. He's going to allow us to have freedom of expression and freedom of religion. Oh yeah, he's going to do good business with us. Yeah, because Hitler, he's a great guy. No, that's not the case. So he's saying if Hitler wins, America can't expect to remain safe. He is also saying here that if we're unprepared and if we just kind of close our eyes to this danger, that we can't hold off this whole world. We can't hold off 4 different continents and be like, yeah, we'll be fine. All these continents are gonna, yeah, they'll be fine. America will be fine because, yeah, we can hold it back. No, if America's unprepared and if we have one hand tied behind our back because we're closing our eyes to these problems, we cannot hold off the whole world. So if Hitler wins, America can't expect to remain safe. So again, FDR wants Americans to know, hey, open up your eyes. There's a threat. We're going to have to join this war. I know you don't want to, but unfortunately, we're going to have to. So let's keep reading. Paragraph 18. Such a peace would bring no security for us or for our neighbors. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. So he's saying that we shouldn't give up the liberty of these other countries in order to give us temporary safety. No, we don't deserve liberty or safety if we allow liberty to be taken away from any other country. As a nation, we may take pride in the fact that we are soft-headed. As a nation, we may take pride in the fact that we are soft-hearted, but we cannot afford to be soft-headed. So he's saying we have big hearts, we care about other countries and other people, but we can't be stupid. So stupid is a no-no. Yes, it's okay to have a heart, but no, it's not okay to be stupid. And we can't just be like, no, Hitler's fine. He can attack all these other countries and America will be fine. That's what FDR is saying. Nope, that's not okay. Paragraph 20. We must always be wary of those who with sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal preach the ism of appeasement. So appeasement was a huge reason why Hitler gained as much of the world as he had, because other nations gave in to his demands, his early demands, to try to keep the peace. And then Hitler was like, yeah, thanks for the little handout you gave me. Now I'm going to take over more. Oh, now I'm going to take over more. And so these countries thought, oh, if we just appease Hitler, if we just give in to his demands, then everything will be fine and we'll have peace. But that did not happen. And now they're fighting a really nasty war with Hitler. And I'm saying now as in like at this time of the speech. Paragraph 21. We must especially beware of that small group of selfish men who would clip the wings of the American eagle in order to feather their own nests. So selfish men would clip the wings of the American eagle. So the wings represent freedom. You know, American eagle has to do with freedom. And clipping the wings means take away freedom. So clip the wings would represent taking away freedom. And then feather their own nests. So I'm trying to think of how I can describe this. So this is kind of like a feather. So imagine this is an eagle, and this eagle is flying. Woo, I'm a flying eagle. And then someone says, you know what? I'm just going to take the feathers off this flying eagle, and I'm going to go ahead and take those feathers, and I'm going to put them in my own nest because I want to help myself. I want to help myself with these feathers. And so this idea is that we should not take away freedom, and we should not allow the freedom of others to be taken away, so we can gain advantage, or so we can gain anything. So feather your own nest means to take it for yourselves. So keep it for yourself. So we shouldn't allow other people's freedom, like this poor eagle's freedom, to be taken away just to help ourselves. We really need to let these other eagles fly so that we can fly too. Kind of make sense? Maybe? Okay. I have recently pointed out how quickly the tempo of modern warfare could bring into our very midst the physical attack which we must eventually expect if the dictator nations win this war. There is much loose talk of our immunity from immediate and direct invasion from across the seas. Obviously, as long as the British Navy retains its power, there's no such danger exists. Even if there were no British Navy, it is not probable that any enemy would be stupid enough to attack us by landing troops in the United States from across thousands of miles of ocean until it had acquired strategic bases from which to operate. So he's basically saying we're not going to be attacked in the immediate future. We're not going to be attacked like tomorrow, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't prepare for when we do get attacked, because it will happen, people. This is what FDR is trying to say. So FDR concedes that the U.S. won't be attacked soon, but he knows it will happen, especially if Hitler keeps gaining power. So if Hitler keeps winning and defeating countries, then he will definitely make sure that America gets attacked. So he's saying it's not going to happen soon. There won't be a direct invasion really soon, but it will happen. And he was totally right. It happened. He had this speech in January. He gave this speech in January, and America was attacked in December. So it didn't happen that next month. It didn't happen the next month, but it happened in what, 11 months? So he was pretty right on about that. Paragraph 24. But we learned much from the lessons of the past years in Europe, particularly the lesson of Norway, whose essential seaports were captured by treachery and surprise built up over a series of years. The first phase of the invasion of this hemisphere would not be the landing of regular troops. The necessary strategic points would be occupied by secret agents and by their dupes, and great numbers of them are already here and in Latin America. So he's saying we're probably already being attacked, but it's probably by secret agents that are here and in Latin America. As long as the aggressor nations maintain the offensive, they, not we, will choose the time and place and the method of their attack. which was true. Japan chose where they were going to attack, when they were going to attack, and the method of their attack. That is why the future of all the American republics is today in serious danger. So this is his main point of the speech. Main point. America's in danger. That's his main point that he wants to put across to Americans. Like, let's not close our eyes. Let's make sure we're prepared for this fight we are going to have to end up fighting. That is why this annual message is to the Congress is unique in our history. That is why every member of the executive branch of the government and every member of the Congress face great responsibility and great accountability. The need of the moment is that our actions and our policy should be devoted primarily and almost exclusively to meeting this foreign peril. Peril means, so it means foreign, like enemy or foreign attack or foreign, let me look it up just to make sure I have it right. But just means foreign, oops, not that one. Peril. Danger, foreign danger. So I was right. So he's saying Congress, and he's talking to Congress right now. He's saying all of the things that we do, all of our actions, all of our policy means laws, should be devoted primarily and almost exclusively to fighting this foreign peril, to fighting Hitler, to figuring out how we are going to stop this. So Congress needs to commit to meeting the dangers of Hitler. And I know Hitler's just one man, but I'm using his name to represent his armies. I'm using his name to represent his aggression and the Nazi aggression and the fact that he really was driving this foreign peril because he wanted world domination. For all our domestic problems are now a part of the great emergency. Domestic problems, he's talking about problems within the United States. So domestic means within the United States. Paragraph 31. Just as our national policy in internal affairs has been based upon a decent respect for the rights and the dignity of all of our fellow men within our gates, so our national policy in foreign affairs has been based on a decent respect for the rights and the dignity of all nations, large and small. And the justice of morality must and will win in the end. Our national policy is this. First, by an impressive expression of the public will and without regard to partisanship, we are committed to all-inclusive national defense. So, he wants to build up our national defense. Second, by an impressive expression of the public will and without regard to partisanship, we are committed to full support of all those resolute peoples everywhere who are resisting aggression and are thereby keeping war from our hemisphere. By this support, we express our determination that the democratic cause shall prevail, and we strengthen the defense and the security of our own nation. So 1, build up our defense. 2, so this is what Roosevelt wants us Americans to do. He wants us to build up our defense. 2, he wants us to support allies fighting overseas. Then third, by an impressive expression of the public will and without regard to partisanship, We are committed to the proposition that principles of morality and considerations for our own security will never permit us to acquiesce in a peace dictated by aggressors and sponsors by appeasers. We know that enduring peace cannot be bought at the cost of other people's freedoms. Okay, so here we have a big word here that I could barely even say. So let's look that up. It means accept. Acquiesce means accept. So we will never permit ourselves to accept in a peace dictated by aggressors and sponsored by appeasers. So we are not going to accept tyranny. We will not accept tyranny is basically what he's saying. So number one, he wants Americans to build up our defenses. He wants America to support allies fighting overseas. And number three, he wants to make sure we do not accept tyranny. If they win, we're going to continue to fight against the tyranny and fight against their rule of these former democratic nations. In paragraph 36, in the recent national election, there was no substantial difference between the two great parties in respect to that national policy. No issue was fought out on this line before the American electorate. Today, it is abundantly evident that American citizens everywhere are demanding and supporting speedy and complete action and recognition of obvious danger. Therefore, the immediate need is a swift and driving increase in our armament production. So, number one, he wants to start basically producing more weapons. So, start producing more weapons. He's saying, we need to be prepared for this war. So what do we need to be prepared? First, we need to start producing more weapons. Let us say to the democracies, we Americans are vitally concerned in your defense of freedom. We are putting forth our energies, our resources, and our organizing powers to give you the strength to regain and maintain a free world. We shall send you in ever-increasing numbers, ships, planes, tanks, guns. This is our purpose and our pledge. So he's saying that number two, we're going to send over to our allies. So send our allies. So these, sorry, I got to move my face. We got to send our allies ships, planes, tanks, guns. We need to send them resources to help them fight this war. So we might not start by joining the war, but we definitely can become prepared, and we can help others by giving them these resources they need to fight the war. Then it says, in fulfillment of this purpose, we will not be intimidated by the threats of dictators that will regard as a breach of international law or as an act of war our aid to the democracies which dare to resist their aggression. Such aid is not an act of war, even if a dictator should unilaterally proclaim it to be so. So he's saying, we're going to help out our allies. It doesn't matter what the dictator might say, what Hitler, what the leader of Italy and the leader of Japan might say. We don't care what the Axis powers might say. We are going to help the democracies regain and keep their democracy. Okay, let's look at paragraph 40. When the dictators, if the dictators, are ready to make war upon us, they will not wait for an act of war on our part. They did not wait for Norway or Belgium or the Netherlands to commit an act of war. Their only interest is in the new one-way international law, which lacks mutuality in its observance and therefore becomes an instrument of oppression. So basically, he's saying these dictators are just going to attack us. They're not going to wait for us to attack them. They're just going to attack us, which they did do. Japan did attack us. So he's saying we need to be prepared, because it doesn't matter if we start an act of war. They're going to attack us anyways. So paragraph 42. The happiness of future generations of Americans may well depend upon how effective and how immediate we can make our aid felt. No one can tell the exact character of the emergency situations that we may be called upon to meet. The nation's hands must not be tied when the nation's life is in danger. We must all prepare to make the sacrifices that the emergency, almost as serious as the war itself, demands. Whatever stands in the way of speedy and efficiency in the defense preparations must give way to the national need. A free nation has a right to expect full cooperation from all groups. A free nation has the right to look to the leaders of business, of labor, and of agriculture to take the lead in stimulating effort, not among other groups, but within their own groups. The best way of dealing with the few slackers or troublemakers in our midst is first to shame them by patriotic example. And if that fails, to use the sovereignty of government to save government. As men do not live by breed alone, they do not fight by armaments alone. Those who man our defenses and those behind them who build our defenses must have the stamina and the courage which come from unshakable belief in the manner of life which they are defending. The mighty action that we are calling for cannot be based on a disregard for all things worth fighting for. So basically he's saying for us to be successful, we need to work together. All parts of the nation need to work together. And he's saying we need to all understand that this is a fight worth fighting for. We must all understand and have an unshakable belief that this democratic life is worth fighting for. It's not okay for us to just accept tyranny, to accept these tyrannical governments, to accept these dictators, to accept these governments that are just going to rule with an iron fist. No, he's saying we need to understand that our freedom is worth fighting for. The nation takes great satisfaction and much strength from the things which have been done to make its people conscious of their individual stake in the preservation of democratic life in America. Those things have toughened the fiber of our people, have renewed their faith and strengthened their devotion to the institutions we make ready to protect. Certainly, this is no time for any of us to stop thinking about the social and economic problems which are the root cause of the social revolution, which is today a supreme factor in the world. For there is nothing mysterious about the foundations of a healthy and strong democracy. The basic things expected by our people of their political and economic systems are simple. They are equality of opportunity for youth and others, jobs for those who can work, security for those who need it, the ending of special privilege for the few, the preservation of civil liberties for all, the enjoyment of the fruits of scientific progress in a wider and constantly rising standard of living. These are the simple, basic things that must never be lost sight of in the turmoil and unbelievable complexity of our modern world. The inner and abiding strength of our economic and political systems is dependent upon the degree to which they fulfill these expectations. Many subjects connected with our social economy call for immediate improvement. As examples, we should bring more citizens under the coverage of old age pensions and unemployment insurance. We should widen the opportunities for adequate medical care. We should plan a better system by which persons deserving or needing gainful employment may obtain it. Okay, so basically what he's saying here is, in order to make America worth fighting for and defending, we should make sure Americans have these improvements made. So these improvements include the coverage of old age pensions and unemployment insurance. So when you get old and you can no longer work, there should be help for you, monetary help. There should be adequate medical care for all people, and people who need employment should be able to obtain it. So we should be able to have plenty of jobs for all Americans in order to obtain employment. So, and then he's saying, I have called for personal sacrifice. I am assured of the willingness of almost all Americans to respond to that call. So now he's going to say what the sacrifice will be that you, not you, but that Americans at this time need to make in order for this to happen. So a part of this sacrifice means the payment of more money in taxes. So the payment of more money in taxes. So he's going to raise taxes in order to pay for the war, in order to pay for the coverage of old age pensions, adequate medical care, and gainful employment. In my budget message, I shall recommend that a greater portion of this great defense program be paid for from taxation than we are paying today. No person should try or be allowed to get rich out of this program, and the principle of tax payments in accordance with ability to pay should be constantly before our eyes to guide our legislation. If the Congress maintains these principles, the voters, putting patriotism ahead of pocketbooks, will give you their applause. So basically he's saying that if the voters put patriotism ahead of their pocketbooks, then they're going to allow these taxes to happen. In the future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. So now finally at the end of the speech, he's going to give these 4 freedoms. And this is what he's going to say. These are the freedoms that belong to every person in the world, and these are the freedoms that we're fighting for. When we fight against tyranny, when we fight against Hitler and these Nazi forces, when we fight against the Japanese forces and the Italian forces, this is what we are fighting for. The first freedom, let me read this again. In the future days which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. So let's box that. That's important. It's the first freedom. The second freedom. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his or her own way, everywhere in the world. So it's the second is freedom of worship. The third is freedom from want, which is translated into world terms means economic understanding, which will secure every nation a healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. So the third is freedom from want. So that means that you're not going to want food or shelter or security because that will be provided for you. We're on page 276 at the top. The fourth is freedom from fear. which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. So basically he wants people to, after the war, to get rid of their weapons, to realize we can live in peace. We don't need to live in war. We don't need to have weapons that will kill each other. Instead, we need to just live side by side and allow others to live without molestation, without affecting them in some negative way. Paragraph 63. That is no vision of a distant millennium. It is a definite basis for a kind of war attainable in our own time and generation. That kind of world is the very antithesis, very opposite of the so-called new order of tyranny, which the dictators seek to create with the crash of a bomb. To that new order, we oppose the greater conception, the moral order. A good society is able to face schemes of world domination and foreign revolutions alike without fear. Since the beginning of our American history, we have been engaged in change, in a perpetual peaceful revolution, a revolution which goes on steadily, quietly adjusting itself to changing conditions, without the concentration camp or the quick lime in the ditch. The world order which we seek is the cooperation of free countries, working together in a friendly, civilized society. So this is the ideal world that FDR says we're fighting for, the peace. FDR sees this is what we fight for. We fight for a world order which is full of cooperating free countries working together in a friendly, civilized society. This nation has placed its destiny in the hands and heads and hearts of its millions of free men and women, in its faith in freedom under the guidance of God. Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights or keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose. To that high concept, there can be no end save victory. So, freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. So supremacy means that, like it's put first. So if we are to be free as a nation, we need to put the human rights of other nations everywhere first. We need to understand that we as a nation cannot be truly free if there are people who are not free around the world. If we are expecting to do business with dictators, it's going to be really hard for us to remain free, because those dictators will slowly take away our freedoms. And so he's saying freedom means the supremacy. So we need to put human rights for everyone, everywhere first. And you should know what human rights are because we talked about them at the beginning of this unit. Okay, so we are done with this speech. Remember, FDR, the purpose of this speech is to try to let Americans know about the dangers posed by this war that was being fought in Europe at the time. And he wanted to increase funding to help prepare for the war and to help our allies fight this war. He wasn't saying we're going to put troops on the ground yet, but he knew that that was probably imminent, that it was probably going to happen, that we were going to end up having to put troops on the ground. And he was right. We did have to end up joining this war when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Okay, I'm going to end our screencast and end our video right now. I will see you